Is we got some miscellaneous stuff to talk about. I'm going to start with questions, though, from homeworks at this point. Does anybody have questions? Okay. Fire away whenever you're ready.
Mr. Cole, you know, like for each grid, it was a ball and then sign on the stand on the video sign. So you have to memorize
Let's just table that for just 1 minute. Okay. Be happy to answer, but I want to worry about like homework questions here first, because I think I'll end up covering that here in a second. Tommy. 47. 47. Yes, sir. So it says, if an angle falls within the given interval, determine whether sine, cosine, or tangent will be positive or negative. So if I draw a little XY axis, I remember that like all silly turtles crawl. 90 degrees to 180 degrees is quadrant 2, right? So in quadrant 2, I know that sine is positive, but the other two are negative. That's what the S in the quadrant tells me, right? Is that sine is the only positive one. So cosine and tangent are the negatives. And I could do the same thing, just right, like everything's just in degrees, or maybe you have to convert to radians or think about it in radians, but it's the same. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Gabs.
44.
44. So here it was asking for coterminal angles. So it's the directions say one has to be a positive angle and one has to be a negative angle. So I noticed that that angle is in radians. So my positive angle, since I already have a positive value, I can just add 2 pi to that. Now to add 2 pi, I need to have a common denominator, right? So 2 pi with the denominator of 7 becomes 14 pi over 7. So that would be 16 over 7 is one answer. And then my negative, well, I should be subtracting then. So if I subtract 14 pi over 7, that gives me negative 12 pi over 7. And that'll do. Is that okay there?
And is 14 pi over 7, like, it would be for both of them? Like,
because we're adding 2 pi regardless.
Oh, okay.
Whenever we do a coterminal, it's always 2 pi. The 14 pi over 7 is just the common denominator version of,
yeah.
right? If I reduce 14 over 7, it's just 2 again. So that's the only reason why that's there, because it's always 2 pi for coterminal. Kira, did you have one? You kind of sounded like you did at the beginning, but then you... Yeah, that's okay. Sure. So it says to evaluate the trigonometric functions for the angle. I notice here that what I'm given is a point on the terminal side of my angle. So I'm going to be using that definition, or this set of definitions. So this is the point definition, except it's supposed to be cotangent. That's a typo. So x is -2, y is 1. I still have to find r. I know that r squared is x squared plus y squared. So r has to be the square root of 5. And now I'm just filling in. So sine theta is going to be y over r. But I have to rationalize that denominator because I don't like the radical down there. Cosine is going to be x over r. But I got to rationalize the denominator again. Tangent is y over x. And then cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. And cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. So those are my 6 sets of answers there. So the key there was going and getting that point definition to fill in, and then remembering that r is x squared, or r squared is x squared plus y squared. It's just the Pythagorean theorem. Does that look okay, Kira? Okay. It's in the content library also if you want to go back and look anyway. Others with questions? Okay. Yeah, Alana? 43? Yup. So again, it's just asking for 2 angles that are coterminal. One should be positive, one should be negative. So since we already have a positive angle, I can just add 360 to it because we're in degrees. So that's 547, I think. And if it's negative, well, I can just subtract the 360 and I get 173, and that should do it. Is that okay? Last call on homeworks. Bless you, bless you. It's a lot of sneezes. You're welcome. Okay. So the next thing we'll talk about is what to expect for the test format stuff. So if you look in the content library, I have a test info page in here. So it gives you a little bit of description of what you should be looking for. So it says the test will be 14 total questions. The last page of the review has the formulas and stuff that I would give you on the test. You should be able to convert from degrees to radians and give your answer in terms of pi. Should be able to go from radians to degrees. If I look at the review, that's like the first page of the review, right? Okay. If I look at, I should be able to solve for arc length, radius, or central angle given 2 of the 3. If I look at the review, that's like what this grid is, and what question 3 is all about is doing those same things, like you're solving for parts of a sector. Is okay there? You should be able to use SOHCAHTOA to write the 6 trig ratios given a right triangle. So if I look at the review, it looks like question 4 and 5 are all right triangle trig questions. Is okay there. You should be able to, given 1 trig ratio, use SOHCAHTOA to write the other 5. So if I look at the review, that's like question 6, where I give you like sine is 5/13. The next one, given a point on the terminal side on a standard position angle, write the 6 ratios. That's just like what the example problem Kier asked about. But if you go down and you look at, say, question number 9, it's asking the same thing. Given 1 trig ratio and the sine of a second, write the other 5 ratios. If I go and I look here, that's like question 11. And then my last bullet says use the unit circle to find the exact values for a trig function. If I look at the review, that's like question 10. Yes. Correct, yes. You'll never, in this class, be asked to memorize unit circle. You'll never have a test where I don't give you one to use, unless you just don't need it for the test. But that'll all be something that'll be provided. Everybody's okay with that? Test format feels okay, what to expect? Review will be really similar, right? There may be some extra stuff in the review, that's okay, but it will be real similar. And then the last piece, based on, or as mentioned in the syllabus, for every test, you can make a half sheet of notes that you can turn in and take, and I will give back to you on the test day. You put anything you want. Use a half sheet of standard 7.5 by 11 paper. You can write on both sides. Put anything there on there you like. My suggestions, at minimum, you should have the conversion factor from degrees to radians or radians to degrees. You should have the reciprocal definitions for like cosecant, secant, and cotangent, right? Like cosecant is 1 over sine. That's something good to have. You should have those arc length formulas and know what the SR and theta represent. Seemed like on the homework quiz, a lot of us were confused a little bit at like, what does SR and theta represent? So maybe a note on that would be helpful. And then you should certainly have the 3 definitions for sine, cosine, tangent, etc. So you should have the right triangle definition, SOHCAHTOA. Should have the point on the terminal side of a standard position angle. I wrote down the formulas there. Also noting that r squared is x squared plus y squared. And then the unit circle definition. And then I guess the, as Anthony was saying, maybe the all silly turtles crawl thing. So at a minimum, I would suggest you probably need those things to take away the memorization piece. With a math test, I'd rather not have to rely on memorization. Any other space left on your note card, though, you're free to use, write examples from homework problems or notes to yourself or other things you're like, oh, this is kind of hard for me. But this should eliminate the memorization piece for you. Now, for that half sheet, again, half sheet of a standard size sheet of paper, you can write on front and back, make sure your name is on it. It must be handwritten, so you can't do something and then print it out and staple it to it. It has to be handwritten, so no 2-point font coming with a magnifying glass to have the entire review on your note card or something. You laugh, but some people have tried to do stuff like that before. To use the note card, I must have your note card by the end of school today, preferably the end of class. This is the last thing we're going to do, and then I'm going to just let you guys work on stuff. And you must be present on the test day to use your note card. So if you miss the test day, you're not eligible to use the half sheet after that. Okay? So you have to be here on the test day to use the half sheet.
This is
Next class, Wednesday.
I should email it. Like this.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like precise. If it's like about half, you're fine.
Take all the class or
You can use as much of class time as you want to work on your half sheet.
no,
If
I
you,
mean like the test.
it varies, so it depends on how fast you are. It's hard to say. If you finish your half sheet, you can work on the review. The review is in OneNote. I didn't print out copies because a lot of students just like look at the OneNote and write on a sheet of paper anyway. So just saving some trees. Also, I did the latest homework check. So if you want to check your My Notre Dame and make sure that I could see everything you thought I could see, if you're marked missing or incomplete on something and you still, I have this done and just didn't turn out, or I had some OneNote problem or whatever, you're free to come up and talk to me. We'll take care of that here today in class.
You got a pair of scissors I can borrow?
In the cup, sir.
I'll steal that real quick.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are sharing your extra half, right? If you don't need
Yes, please.
you don't need 2 half sheets unless you're going to save it for later. But, and again, with your half sheets, you can compare with other people. You can, pass them back and forth. You can make sure that your friend says, you didn't put this on here and I put this on here, or whatever. Like, please do that. No big deal.